What's up, witches? It's been quite a while since I've done a intuitive tarot reading video, and I thought about doing one for like Ostara around like Easter time, but I've already been noticing some early signs of spring here where I live, so I figured since I'm in the mood to film a video but didn't really want to have to sit down and expound upon anything like too research heavy based, I would just do a spring awakening tarot reading now. So let's get into it. Today I actually feel like using a deck that I haven't used in a while because it's my very first tarot deck, the Hanson Roberts tarot deck, and I had kind of decided that this one is going to be like mainly my own personal deck for that reason that I'll use for my personal readings, but you know, I just really like the artwork of it. There's our kind of bottom of the deck energy, if we want to go there, is the moon, which is interesting because it's all about like tapping into your subconscious and diving deep into yourself to figure out like who you really are and what you really want. But I just really like the light colored pencil artwork of this deck. It gives very mellow, sweet spring energy to me. So I figured I would start by pulling from this deck today. And in my past couple of videos, I had been kind of just doing off-screen facing the cards, but it's just a little bit easier to film sitting down this way. So instead of showing you the entire spread, I'll just lay them out and then show you the individual cards as we go through them and switch it up a bit. I know for me, I'm kind of coming out of my own little personal funk, so that's interesting because the first card I've pulled here is the Strength card, and this is definitely very divine, feminine, goddess energy. We see that image that I talked about a little bit in my video about Freya and cats, where it's the woman either seated on a lion, or usually she is kind of being the typical like three-ring circus lion tamer and actually maybe prying open the jaws of the lion. Here she's just gently holding the lion's head and maybe giving him some nice pets. But we actually see a continuation here of a image that you'll see reflected in the Magician card on this deck of the figure 8 or infinity symbol over her head. So that definitely also ties into that dichotomy of divine feminine and masculine with the Magician card, and then this woman in this card also bearing that symbol above her. The Strength card evokes just that very Freya energy to me of maybe taking those typically like masculine associated traits and instead of letting them dominate you, gaining control and mastery of them, but not in a formidable, dominating way, in a very gentle, reciprocative, compassionate way. And to me, it's kind of an epitome of the types of strength that Freya teaches me. Those types of maybe less overt strength, where we are maybe using things like diplomacy, charisma, compassion, holding space not just for others but also for ourselves, and being able to master those like maybe more dominant and predatory urges in a less violent way, instead of like just meeting strength with strength in terms of like physical strength, of looking inward into our other types of strength, because the biggest one that Freya teaches me is emotional resilience and the strength in being vulnerable. And so I think that kind of leads into the next card I've pulled here, which is the Hermit, which is very like Odinic energy, but more Odin the Wanderer, and of kind of doing that shadow work embodied in that moon card that was at the bottom of the deck, and searching both within and without for what we need, maybe subconsciously, and doing that shadow work. The story that I always associate the Hermit card with is of, there's this Greek man, Diogenes the Hermit, and he's wandering around, maybe with a lantern, I can't remember, but he's wandering around searching for an honest man. And basically, like, the metaphor is that he's constantly wandering and his wanderings never cease, because it's that hard to actually come across a truly honest man. And so it kind of maybe symbolizes needing to take a step back from the world at large and from that day-to-day grind of it all and the overwhelming amount of information and calls to action, whether it be from without or just from within, just that things that we're constantly being bombarded with in the modern world. It's even more necessary, I think, at times to be that hermit. And I know, as I was just saying going into this reading, that for me, I'm coming out of like my full-on hermit hibernation mode personally, where I was just really in a bit of a funk, a bit of depression. I don't know if it was like feeling the full force of the seasonal depression with just the weather being really cold and gloomy, and just, yeah, everything feeling just really dormant and stagnant, and just, yeah, really not wanting to leave my bed, let alone my house. So I have, for one, definitely been in full-on hermit mode for the last couple months, really, but the last like 2 months, especially like December and January. But as I said, I'm here to do this reading because I'm already feeling that spring energy coming in. And I know here in the Midwest, we have that funny meme chart of all the different crazy seasons that we go through here. And so right now, with it only being February, we might be in a little bit of that, what is termed the false spring. I know the groundhog just a couple weeks ago had predicted 6 more weeks of winter here, but for me, I've really been sensing the spring energy. I'm already seeing some early spring flowers start to crop up in my backyard, seeing some birds returning and some robins hopping around already. So while winter may still come back to show its face 1 or 2 more times before spring really settles in here, I know while my neighbors to the north are still feeling the brunt of winter and the snowstorms, we're starting to peep into spring here. And so it's definitely that period of transition and spring awakening, like I said, coming back into the world, or at least coming back into my life, I feel like, which is interesting that the third card I've pulled to contrast a bit with the Hermit card and pulling away from the world and withdrawing into the self, doing some soul searching and going within. The Ace of Pentacle cards is, like, pentacles are very much tied to the material world and material comfort and career and material goods and wealth and security and things like that. So maybe it represents just a little bit of needing to come back into the world in some type of way. And for me, I know while I have been taking like a little bit of a break and not really feeling like doing a whole lot, I am, you know, as I touched on in one of my previous videos, working on the sidelines on opening like a little shop or like digital storefront to sell just some things that I've been working on. And so this card kind of really rings true for me because I've reached this kind of plateau or precipice point, the jumping off point of, all right, I have things ready to go. It's time to really like launch and start selling things, but something's holding me back. Like maybe I'm holding myself back. There's that fear in the corner of my mind of like, what if nothing happens? What if it doesn't go anywhere? What if I fail? So I'm like holding myself on that precipice right now between these two energies of wanting to stay in the hermit mode and needing to put your energy and your thoughts and your focus kind of back out there in the world in order to make something of it, make something of yourself, and yeah, just be a productive member of society again for a little bit. But yeah, I guess this is maybe saying like no risk, no reward. So the first one I pulled is the Hierophant, which I think for me, along with the Magician, is definitely along with the High Priestess, giving a bit of that masculine, feminine contrast of energies like I talked about, where this is more coming from within, and the Hierophant does represent almost that higher power, higher authority. Yeah, that maybe more, not necessarily like authoritarian mindset, but like I said, maybe just time to not only come out of that hermit mode where I've just been indulging in a little bit of self-care and letting myself be in that energy and trying hard not to feel the pressure to like always go, but where we don't want to go like too far into that mindset of being stuck in the rat race and listening to what other people are saying is like their idea of success, their idea of productivity, their idea of being your best self. We need to go within and be able to manifest that energy out in the world in a way that is productive for us. And one of the books that I think I read and reviewed a while back on my channel was The Mastery of Self, which I do recommend because I think this is the type of energy that I would like to see focused on and embodied more in this card. Is less that like outside authority telling us what to do, because we can listen to the gods, and along with the Emperor exuding that masculine Odin energy, this does too a little bit, but it's that getting to that wisdom through another channel. And we see these figures here literally kneeling before him and praying to this Hierophant, and he holds the keys now. And we can't access any of that, not just in modern day churches, but in modern day just society in general. These are the designated keepers of the keys, and they have access to the power and the information, and you can't access any of that except for through them. One of the things that I really like about paganism is it takes out that middleman and that hierarchy of, oh, well, in order to really communicate with God or the gods, you have to go through this intermediary of a priest, a pope, a high priestess, whatever the case may be. And more realizing that no, we have all of these things within ourself, and you can listen to yourself and find that mastery of self to be your guiding light and tell you what to do. But through that mastery of self, be able to harness that power and that energy to manifest it out in the world in a way that is beneficial to you. And like it enables our own growth and security and happiness and comfort. So it's interesting that the next card following that is the Knight of Pentacles. So very earth energy contained in this card. He's wearing a horned helm, which to me embodies that like Taurus, earth sign type of mentality or personality, and needing to harness that energy because the knight is someone who is ready to go back out into the world and go out on those quests to find those things outside of themselves that they can then bring back and use to either benefit others. But yeah, like a quest for the self, perhaps. You've searched within yourself, you've found your inner strength, and now it's time to take that back out into the world and be able to make it work for you. And yeah, seek out those things in the world that will enable you to continue on that quest, continue on that path and that journey in life. And the third card that we've pulled and that it will lead to is mirroring not only happiness, contentment, and fulfillment in the epitome of the Ace of Pentacles, but now coming into the Ace of Cups, which is emotional contentment and fulfillment. And you know, I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. Well, I feel like this card is the ultimate symbol of like your cup is now full. Your cup is full. Your cup runneth over with fulfillment, contentment, good luck, harmony, abundance, all those good things. And now you can pour it forth onto others and share that. And next card is the King of Pentacles. So we've come kind of full circle here now, and it represents harnessing those energies, taking them back into the world and into reality and the material world in a way where we're not necessarily having to just follow authority all of the time, but can still, especially with me, like, yeah, one thing I'm just trying to do with this channel, with the digital storefront I want to open to sell my little wares, like my God and Goddess essential oils. I'm going to be working on spell jars as well. Finding a way to be able to make my passions and my hobbies also return some dividends in the material world, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I've always thought that, you know, I need to have this desk job and this full-time 9-to-5 job in order to have that material security in the real world, because like being a full-time artist or a witch isn't something that's gonna like pay the bills, which it may never like fully pay my bills, but I'm kind of learning on this path to be able to harness these energies and that mastery of self in a way to where we can still achieve some sort of like financial and material comfort and success while not turning fully away from the things in life that really fulfill us and bring us contentment and like bring us joy. There is a way to kind of meld the two together. That's exemplified here in pulling the King of Pentacles. He's the mastery of this domain, this earth sign, material plane, material comfort. You know, he's literally king of the castle. And we'll do two more. Yeah, oh, look at here. 10 of Pentacles. So now it's really paying dividends. And now we really have come full circle through the full suit. From Ace to 10, from Knight to King. And yeah, what this is showing me is that now is your chance. We can harness this spring awakening energy to pull ourselves out of the seasonal depression, especially if you're anything like me, and feel like harness that resurgence of energy and life coming into the world to harness our own energy and sense of purpose and be able to harness those things and make them show up for us in a material way. We see here like the full generation of family here. He's even got a little doggo there. So home, hearth, family, contentment. Pentacles here can symbolize coins and money. So we just see like financially and home and family wise, it just represents having everything you need in life to be content and happy. Everyone's taken care of. And interestingly enough, the last card that I've pulled here is the very first card in tarot, which is the Fool. So this represents new beginnings, going on those new journeys, those new quests with not just a renewed sense of purpose, but the Fool is not just a fool in that they're ignorant, And in like the typical Rider-Waite decks, you will oftentimes see them like about to just like la-di-da walk right off of a cliff because they're looking off into the horizon. Their focus is on the future and not on the here and now, but it's because they just have that joie de vivre, that je ne sais quoi, that just youthful energy where like they're fresh in the world. They haven't been beaten down or jaded by the material world and by like the rat race yet. So it's being able to harness that outlook on life, that fresh perspective, and maybe just treat things like a blank slate and start over, start a new adventure, go off and explore something new, or just explore something that you're currently stuck on with a new perspective. And I guess just being able to have that optimistic outlook that the Fool has and that the new beginnings are offering to you. So I feel like this is a very like powerful card to end on in a way, because it's representing kind of everything coming full circle in a way. Let me whip out my tarot directory really quick just so that I can elaborate on that a little bit more for you guys. But yeah, the keywords here are start of a new phase, taking a leap of faith, and just having an openness to life. Whereas before we've been a hermit, closeted away, keeping away from the world, keeping ourselves secluded, being a bit of a recluse if you're me. It's, not only going back out there and putting yourself back out there in the world, but having that openness to life. It's the beginning of a new chapter, and it's a reminder that maybe we've outgrown a previous phase or previous energy, and that now that it's spring and a new season is coming, it's time to harness that new energy, let it propel you into something new. Keep that desire and that openness to life, and that openness to life pulling in new unexpected opportunities for us. Just by keeping ourselves out, putting ourselves out there and keeping open to it. Alright, so that's a good start. And to finish off here, I'm going to pull from my Celtic Shaman's pack and see what other energies are in the air and in the waters right now that we can focus on. What energies are calling to us? What energies does Spirit want us to work with, or that we can maybe just expect going into these upcoming spring months? Ooh, okay. The Lord of the Sea. Hello, Njord. Hello, Aegir. So let's see what the handy-dandy guidebook says about the Lord of the Sea. But yeah, right off the bat, definitely Vanir vibes as far as I'm concerned. Freya and her father Njord. Njord especially is tied to kind of the coasts and those like material prosperity things that I think were also embodied in the pentacle cards that we were pulling. Like, he's definitely associated with like mercantile and maritime trade, and therefore with like wealth and opportunity and prosperity. And I'm often asking Njord to steer me away from danger and toward opportunity. And here we have the Lord of the Wave. The restless and tempestuous energy of the sea is represented by the Lord of the Wave himself. Our species came from the sea and still feels a powerful attraction to its power. To the Celts, the way to the other world lies across the water, and to ride one of the horses of the Lord of the Sea is to arrive swiftly at the heart of all mystery. And the counterpart here that they focus on in Irish lore is Manannán mac Lir, and his Welsh kind of counterpart, Manawyddan, because Manannán mac Lir is more than just a god of the sea. Much like the Vanir gods, he's also a craftsman, a farmer, and a wielder of magic. His role in the Welsh Mabinogion is very much that of an enchanter, but the Irish Lear and Manannan Mac Lear are kind of the most clear depictions of sea deities. In the Voyage of Bran, he appears riding a chariot drawn by horses that ride as easily on the waves as they do under, which is also like very Vanir energy. They are often associated with chariots, wagons, and horses. He also wears a cloak of many colors, which if shaken over a mortal can cause them to forget everything. And maybe that's associated with the other world lying across the water, and often with like goddesses such as Nehelenia, you would take a boat to the other world, and we know that in like, say, Greek mythology, you cross the river Styx and drink from the river Lethe, which makes you forget everything about your mortal life. So perhaps an interesting tie-in to like otherworld myths there. He also, much like Freyr, possesses a magical boat which obeys the thought of whoever is sailing it, a terrible sword named Fragarak, Answerer, and a herd of pigs which, though killed and eaten on one day, return to life again fully restored the next day. In various texts, his kingdom is named Magmel, the Pleasant Plain, Tir Tangir, the Land of Promise, and Emain Avlak, the region of apples. And it was said that the sea was, to Manannan, a flowery plain, and the fish in it were his calves and lambs. So that's also interesting Vanir vibes there, because the daughter and son of Njord, the Norse sea god, are Freyr and Freya, who are associated with livestock, crops, and fertility. So it's interesting that we have this metaphorical land under the sea, which is also metaphorically referred to as a field and a plain, but the livestock there, instead of like calves and lambs, are fish and like bounties of the sea. And I think the names of his kingdom are also kind of references, as noted in my video on the otherworld, kind of being not an underworld, but a land of the dead. Pleasant Plain, the Land of Promise, the region of apples, like these are all also images that we associate with the apples of eternal youth. The Isle of Avalon, I think, is also called Emain Ablak, the Isle of Apples. And that's where Arthur was taken to kind of live eternally and be the once and future king and all of that. So some interesting images here, and also I think some further clues into why Njord is also associated not just with the sea, but much like these lords of the sea, sea kings, and gods of the sea and of the waves are said to have all of these endless riches and endless bounties. And the key word that it gives is passion, which is interesting because I was talking about harnessing your passions and that energy of the Fool to take us into this next season and be able to produce some opportunities and some riches for us. So perhaps Njord would be one to reach out to and work with in that regard. So let me pull one more from here just to see what other energies and archetypes are coming through. Okay. I got two here that popped out. The Lady of the Moon and Stars, and the Maiden, which very springtime energies there. So let's read a little bit about them. Oh, and the Lady of the Moon and Stars, interestingly enough, in this deck is the card that comes right after the Lord of the Sea. So we have a lot of deity energy coming through in this reading. All right, the Lady of the Moon and Stars. Keyword for this one is perception. Through the mysteries of the moon and stars, we've always learned to appreciate the influence of the heavenly bodies on our lives. They have the power to enhance our perceptions of the cosmos and our own place within it. They also possess the qualities we are most in need of in our own time: timelessness, immutability, and the endless cyclicity of life itself. The Lady of the Moon and Stars holds within her all these qualities and bestows them where they are most appreciated and best used. So definitely goddess energy, mother goddess energy. I know I've seen a lot of videos that I haven't really delved into very in depth yet about how, especially maybe in like very early Norse and Northern mythologies, instead of earth goddess, sky god that we often see, it was actually a sky goddess, especially with like Nott and the night goddesses having some type of domain or rulership over the sky. And a way that I often like to perceive deities nowadays is less categorizing them along like, god of rain, god of crops, god of like one specific thing. I like to typically categorize them more along the lines of either being terrestrial, atmospheric, or celestial, where terrestrial would be earth, primarily earth-based. Atmospheric is like weather and sky deities, and then we have celestial, which are like heavenly beings and heavenly bodies. And I do somewhat, and this is like going way into my own UPG and something that I haven't really even explored too much or been able to really put a finger on exactly yet, but in terms of seeing Freya in particular and some of these goddesses not just as like earth fertility deities, but especially with her being Vanir and associated also with the Alfar, and elves, who I see as being very atmospheric realm beings, Alfheim and Light Alfheim and things like that. I do see her as possibly, very obscurely, being related to the stars somehow, because one of my like own personal theories is that sailors and people who are out at sea often would navigate using the stars, and so with Njord especially, I feel like maybe that's something that he would have great knowledge of, and perhaps in my own head, in my own UPG, a reason why Njord, or like this Lord of the Sea, was specifically requested as a hostage of the Aesir after the war, is because like not only did he have this whole rulership over the sea and the bounties and riches of the sea, but maybe he had also came with an advanced knowledge of not just seafaring culture and like ships and like ship building culture, but navigating by the stars, which is very valuable information to have. And so I wonder if not just like Njord might be related to the stars in that way, but maybe also seeing Freya as a guiding heavenly body in a sense. Because one of Freya's nicknames is Mardal, which means like sea bright, which could, in one of my interpretations, be almost like an Aphrodite, like sea foam, a goddess born of like the bright sea foam, being related to love and beauty. But yeah, maybe sea bright as in the reflection of the moon or the stars on the sea at night. Who knows? Because we do see a lot of like deities and beings, especially in like the Norse myth, which are like very specifically related, and also in Vedic myth, like very specifically related to one specific thing, like a deity or an elf of the dawn, or of the sunlight, which comes from a star. You have like a deity of the star, a deity of the earth, and then another deity which also represents the light of the star, like shining on the earth. So it does get like very in-depth and detailed, and so part of me almost wonders if like some aspects of Freya could contain some of those celestial elements. But I'm getting way off track here. These archetypes you can really read into them, and that's something that I liked about this deck, is that the guidebook goes specifically into figures and deities within the different lore that may be embodied in this card, but the card itself stays a little bit more archetypal and vague, so that no matter what pantheons or deities you yourself are specifically working with, you can apply it to whatever actually like speaks to you or whomever speaks to you. The deities or beings that the guidebook specifically associates with the Lady of the Moon and Stars is Arianrod, who is associated with the moon and whose name means either silver wheel or silver fortress. So that could be like the silver wheel, as in, I know in Norse myth, the sun according to the elves, is referred to as the elf wheel. So maybe, yeah, she's associated with the moon as being a silver wheel in the sky, and the silver wheel in the sky and the phases of the moon were also used as a calendar and a way of telling time. So she could be associated with time or different seasons in that way. She rules over the starry heavens and dispenses wisdom and law to all who approach her. Her story also comes from the Welsh Mabinogion. Her fortress is called Caer Sidi, a place of mystery and initiation, but also transformation and death. And as I went into in my whole video on the other world, and like the concept of, yeah, like the mysterious fairy forge that disappear and reappear, very mysterious. So yeah, she's also definitely associated with the other world and those types of things. She is described as the daughter of Beli and Dawn, two of the most powerful early deities of Welsh tradition. But so she is considered perilous, much like these other world beings can be. We also have the maiden, which is also, yeah, like Freya, Eden, Eostra, Ostara, that spring, maiden, fresh energy coming back into the world. Keyword here is innocence, so I think much like the Fool, it just represents that fresh energy, new beginnings, a fresh outlook on life, all that is good and innocent in the world, and yeah, definitely those spring energies. And one of the themes that it touches on is the Spring Maiden, the Wheel of the Year, and the theme of the Flower Bride, one of the oldest tales in the world, which we also see in such myths as Persephone, goddess associated with spring, life, flowers, and new growth. Has to, through one circumstance or another, spend half the year either underground, in the land of the dead, or just somewhere away from Midgard and the land of the living and the mortal world. And as a result, that's why there are cycles of seasons and cycles of plants and cycles of life. She's the manifestation of young and burgeoning life, the lost innocence we all seek and which is most strongly present within us at the time of spring. So definitely very on the nose pulling that card there. To, I think, further hopefully tap into that spring energy, the other deck that I'd like to pull from before I leave you is this Druid Plant Oracle, because I haven't really played around with this one too much, but since all of the plants are getting ready to start coming back to life and coming back into the world again, I figured that I would pull one or two from here. These are ginormous cards. We'll see kind of what plant energies we can look forward to in the coming months and that we can work with right now and in the coming months. Because all of these plants are not only going to have their practical, everyday, medicinal, and witchcraft spellwork applications, but will also have kind of their more magical associations and properties. So we can kind of run the whole gamut of both practical and more mystical divinatory information here. So let's see. I'm just going to pull some at random. Borage. Interesting. Not really one I'm familiar with. Not one I'm sure grows here in North America or in Kornheim or not. Borage, or Borigo officinalis, represents courage, forgetfulness, and gladness. It originated in the Middle East, but is now naturalized throughout most of Europe and North Africa, mostly growing wild on wasteland in Britain. So I don't know if I would be able to find this here in North America, but we can still work with their energies and their properties, maybe even through these cards. If I can't find actual borage, maybe I can use a card in a working. But it says, also known as starflower. The oil from its seeds is now popular for its health benefit. Borage has been associated with courage since ancient days. If you've chosen this card, it may be that this is the quality you need to draw upon at this time. True courage, which requires a strong and generous heart and involves looking beyond your own needs to perceive the greater good of those around you. This may mean you need to be courageous in standing up for someone who is weaker than you or needs your protection, or it may mean sticking your head above the parapet to make a stand for what you believe is right. To be courageous and daring, you must also be able to forget. If you hold every eventuality in mind, you will never act. And being courageous often requires magnanimity that forgets personal slights or errors of judgment. Going beyond judgment or recrimination, true courage is a brave open-heartedness that restores our confidence in human nature, bringing with it joy and happiness. Wow, I feel like that also really ties into a lot of the themes we saw going through this whole reading, especially that I talked about concerning the different types of strength as embodied in the strength card, and needing to find that courage, especially me, like I said, of like being on the precipice of like wanting to start my shop and put myself out there in the world and like literally market myself to others in that way. Being scared to literally take that leap of faith seen here in the Fool card, like take that leap off the ledge and see what happens, just trust. And yeah, like embodies those different forms of strength that it talks about here as courage. I feel like that definitely relates to what we talked about here about harnessing that new spring energy to kind of maybe regain a sense of joy and purpose in life and in the world around us as life starts to return to the world around us. I feel like that's just really a perfect summary of what we can have to look forward to in the coming months as spring returns. Just being able to harness that energy and that renewal and that new sense of life and growth to regain our own sense of joy and purposefulness, and maybe needing to do a little bit of letting go and forgetting the past, forgetting things that we might have outgrown in order to be able to move forward and harness all those new opportunities which can be coming our way if we're just willing to be open and out there about it. I feel like that's the perfect note to end off this reading with. And I know it was a little bit rambly and long-winded in parts, but like I said, it's been a while since I've done an intuitive reading. We had a lot of interesting energies and messages and deity energies coming through with the Celtic Shamans deck there. Some other energies with this Druid Plant Oracle that we can maybe tap into and concentrate on in the coming months. So I hope that this was helpful and enjoyable and at least entertaining for you. And until next time, stay classy, pagan.